Okay, let's just dive right in with a really heavy question. We're talking about the global arms industry, a massive multi-billion-dollar business. But what if its very profits depend on conflict continuing or even getting worse? That's the core idea we're going to unpack today. So here's the question our source material puts right on the table. Should the arms industry be investigated for its part in maybe creating or prolonging conflicts? Now look, this isn't some brand new conspiracy theory. It's an accusation that's been around for a long, long time, and it just doesn't seem to go away.
All right, section one, a disturbing question. And it really is a disturbing question, right? I mean, why even ask this? If there's no smoking gun, no direct proof, what are we even talking about? And this is a really key point. The source isn't saying, hey, we've got proof these companies start wars. Not at all. The argument is more like, well, think of it like a detective case. There's no smoking gun, sure, but there's a compelling motive, the means to do it, and the opportunity. And when you have all three of those things, isn't that enough to say, okay, maybe we should investigate this?
So let's do just that. Let's open up this case file just like our source does. We're going to start with those first two pieces, motive and means.
So what's the motive? Well, according to the source, it's kind of brutally simple. It's money. Conflict drives demand for weapons and military gear. The longer a conflict goes on, the more demand there is. And for a publicly traded company, there's always that relentless pressure from shareholders to make more money, to maximize profits. In this business, war is just good for the bottom line.
Okay, so that's the motive. What about the means? How could they actually exert influence? Well, first off, you've got billions and billions of dollars in revenue. That's a lot of power. Then you have these huge, very powerful lobbying operations. You've got the whole revolving door thing, which we'll get to in a sec, with politicians and military officials. And you even have private military companies on the ground, right in the middle of the action. Let's talk about this revolving door for a second, because it's a huge part of the argument. You have these really high-ranking government officials, military generals, you name it. They leave their public service jobs and boom, they walk straight into a super well-paying job in the defense industry. And you have to ask, right? What's the potential problem there? Well, the worry is that all their connections, all their insider knowledge can be used to benefit their new company. It's a massive potential conflict of interest.
And this isn't just some abstract idea. The source points out that history is, well, it's full of examples. You've got the Bofors scandal back in the 80s with allegations of bribes. You've got the massive Al Yamama deal between the UK and Saudi Arabia, again, swirling with allegations of secret payments. Even more recently, you see stories about former politicians using their contacts for personal gain. It suggests a pattern where that line between what's good for the public and what's good for a company's wallet can get really, really blurry. All right, so we've covered motive and means. Now for the third piece of that puzzle, opportunity. This is where it all comes together, where the what if becomes a real risk. So what does opportunity even mean here? It's the chance to actually use that money and influence we just talked about. It's having the political connections to get a seat at the table when the big decisions about war and peace are being made. It's having people and assets on the ground in conflict zones. It's the ability to turn potential into action. The source uses this really powerful analogy to sum up the whole argument. It says, seeing a pile of bodies doesn't tell you who did it, but it means the case may be serious enough to demand a closer investigation. And that's the whole point, right? It's not an accusation of guilt. It's saying the situation is so serious, the evidence so troubling, that we have to look closer. We owe it to ourselves to investigate.
And what makes all this even riskier are the bigger structural problems. I mean, the arms industry is famously not transparent, right? It's hard to see what's going on. The rules and oversight, well, they're often pretty weak. And then you have this gigantic lobbying machine that can sometimes feel like it's drowning out the voices of everyday citizens.
And that brings us to the ultimate risk. This isn't just about some corporate spreadsheet or a bad quarterly report. We're talking about the risk that the drive for profit could actually get in the way of peace, that it could undermine democracy, and at the end of the day, that it could lead to real, unnecessary human suffering. The stakes could not be higher.
Okay, so we've laid out the case. Motive, means, opportunity. It's a lot. So what do we do about it? Well, the source doesn't just leave us with the problem. It calls for answers.
And an independent investigation wouldn't be like a courtroom trial trying to send one person to jail. The idea is much bigger.
First, you'd map out how influence and lobbying actually work. You'd get it all on paper. Second, you'd document where the system is weak, where the oversight is failing. And finally, you'd come up with real, practical recommendations to protect the process of making peace from these huge economic pressures.
And the source makes one last really interesting point. It's kind of curious, isn't it? For an issue this big, with stakes this high, why don't we hear more about it from major media outlets? There seems to be a strange silence on the topic.
So that brings us right back to where we started. We don't have all the answers. This explainer, just like the source material it's based on, isn't here to give you a definitive yes or no. It's just here to lay out the case that the motive, the means, and the opportunity are all there, and that they're just too strong to keep ignoring. So the real question for you, for all of us, is this: is it time to start asking for a real, independent investigation?